Welcome back after our break. Next on our agenda, we have the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Neil Elks, welcome.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for giving us the opportunity. You ready for me to start?
Yes, sir.
Oh, well, thank you.
On your mark.
Briefly, we'll run through some slides here, and I'd like to give some explanation of some of the things we do and our responsibilities. As we all know, we're a 24-hour a day, 365 days, 24-hour a day, 365 responsibility. That means we work holidays, we work nights, we work weekends. We have to be there when nobody else is there. Some of our responsibilities is to protect life and property. We respond to all citizens when they have their needs for calls for service. We teach our employees to respect our citizens with fairness and dignity. We conduct a thorough investigation on all cases, whether it be your lawnmower stolen or your $30,000 life savings stolen out of your house. We do thorough investigations on all cases. We treat everybody equal. No crime has a price tag on it. To that victim, to that citizen, that crime is important. We also hold prisoners for state and federal courts according to our laws. Some of our other responsibilities that we always get taken for granted is courtroom security. By statute, we have to provide the judges and security for the courtroom. We also are required by law to track, maintain, register sex offenders. The sheriff's responsibility is to issue firearms permits. Every firearm that's bought in the state of North Carolina has to have a permit, whether it be concealed carry or purchase permit. We also issue concealed carry permits. That's been a great demand over the past year since we've seen the events that have occurred in Pitt County. To give you a measuring mark, last year we did 899. This year we're going to probably hit over 1,200. That's a lot of concealed carries. Our staffing, we have 329 employees. They tell me that that's 39% of the county employees work for the Office of the Sheriff. On the sheriff's side, we had 139. To break that down briefly, we have 9 telecommunicators, 13 support staff, 117 sworn officers to protect this county. Detention employees, 180. We have 4 maintenance mechanics. We have 5 deputies that work out there. We have 7 support staff and 164 detention officers. We also have school resource officers. We have 9 deputies. We have 1 jail coordinator. In our patrol division, we responded to over 13,000 calls for service. Remember, we're 24 hours a day, 13,000 calls for citizens. Some of them may be crimes. Some of them may be they just need a deputy there to help answer legal questions, or to them, that neighbor is worrying them, or that problem they're having in the neighborhood, suspicious person. That's what they're calling us for. We encourage the people to call. When they think they need a deputy, you call us, we're going to respond. This year alone, we recorded over 23,000 business checks, and we record those as we're patrolling in our mobile data system. And it's probably another 23,000 that was not even recorded. That's a 35% increase. We had over 7,000 reports of criminal activity. That's a 17% increase. This year alone, we processed over 26,000 civil papers. Our average response time is 20 minutes. And you're going to say this year we chose to report that differently and fairly, because a lot of times we would say, well, the deputy got there in so many minutes, but I wanted to include this year the actual time from the time you pick that phone up and call to the time my deputy arrives. We've got our response times down. We've gone from 14 to 11 minutes. But where the dilemma is the dispatch time, how much time it takes that call taker to take that call, get it in the system, and get it out. That's where I'm greatly concerned about, because I know one of our recommendations for a budget cut is a dispatcher position. I need dispatchers. I have 1 at night, many nights after 12 o'clock. Other agencies such as Greenville Police has 4 to 5 on a 24-hour period. 911 has multiple dispatchers over there, and it ain't even feasible for us to have 1 person in there at night for safety reasons. If that person was to get sick, pass out, need to go home, go to the bathroom, how do they function? Very concerned about that. That's my goal for this year, is to get that time down even less. We've done our part as responding, but we've got to get that call taker's response down. This is life or death. This is whether you catch a criminal. This is whether you save that person's life that's been shot, assaulted, etc. We summed up some of the highlights of our response calls for assault urgency calls. It's generally 15 minutes. That's from the time the phone rings till we get there. Breaking in progress, we usually get there in 6 minutes. Fights are 8 minutes. Domestic assaults around 10 minutes. We served over 1,700 evictions. Now, evictions is not knocking on the door. That means we have to go there, make sure that tenant has left that residence. Sometimes we have to stand by until they leave. We have to assist the landlord, property owner in changing locks, and basically we are turning that property over to the property owner. It takes time. That's not a knock on the door and walk away. It could be hours a day spent on that. We conduct over 140 repossessions of personal property. We all know what that means. Conduct over 100 executions. We collected over $1.4 million to satisfy debts as a result of the executions. When judge orders judgments, these executions are put in place. We have to go collect seized property, sell that property at public auction to satisfy that debt. That's another responsibility we have. It's a great responsibility that's often forgotten about. Processed over 17,700 civil papers this year. Our child support enforcement unit, we collected over $13 million this year to help the children of, I call deadbeat dads, as unresponsible parents that won't pay the child support. And we know all where that money goes. We're doing a campaign with that right now. You know, and I have a great passion for teaching responsibility. In the last murder case we had, we charged a mother with contributing to the delinquency of a minor. And that mother didn't know where that child was. So we're teaching, you've got to be responsible. These parents have got to pay their child support. They've got to be responsible for that. What could that child be if he had the right parental support? What could that child be in school or education or in life? You know, that's the way you prevent future people going into the criminal element. Revenues, resources. Just some of the highlights for this year alone. We projected we would collect over $5,457,000 in revenue. We're on target to collect over $600,000 more than we projected. How are we doing that? We're housing our federal inmates, increase the civil process. Our fees went from 15 to 30, and that's one thing that people don't understand. We've got to serve those civil papers in order for that customer to come back and say, I'm not spending $100, I'm not spending $30 to pay to have that paper served, and I go there and the paper hasn't been served. That's very disappointing to that landlord or the person with the magistrate summons that for small claims that he hasn't delivered, had the service he feels like is delivered. But it's a revenue for us. So if we cut back in that area, we're going to lose that potential as a revenue as well. Increase, I mentioned earlier, increase the gun permits. The Meals on Wheels program, we get a commission off that from the jail. We allow them to go into our jail and use it certain days through the week, and that gives us a revenue source. Some of the things we've done in crime prevention initiatives, we've done a bully prevention program, video, gang violence video. We do Operation Child Support. You see that going on now. Joint operations with the U.S. Marshals, and what we did a year ago, we had over 900 warrants that were outstanding. Some of these people were people that had been evading law enforcement, had not been brought to justice. We went out and served those warrants, and we're down below 64 warrants. And I'm very proud of our guys for getting that done. And we did that with the help of the U.S. Marshals. We have the Citizens Academy program we do. That's we basically run about 30 to 40 people. We run that 2 or 3 times a year. It's where we invite our community to come in. I invite all you guys to come out and participate in that. Gives you a bird's-eye view of what we actually do. And we get good reports on that, of the results of that. The citizens, a lot of them end up being volunteers for us because they like what we do, they like what they see, and they like to participate. We have a volunteer program. We have over 125 volunteers, and that includes the jail ministry, the chaplains. I have 2 volunteers that come in every Tuesday and Thursday that normally I'd have to pay a clerk, and that volunteers is certified by the state. He fingerprints all my concealed carry, my sex offenders, and it just takes a tremendous amount of workload off the front desk. So we use our volunteer program. We've come up with some strategy patrols to find fugitives. To give you an example, after we did our roundup, we did checking points, check stations on New Hope Drive. And we found we had warrants on coming to see the people in the jail. So we were able to arrest those as they were coming in. We got drugs, we got guns. So we find ourselves strategically doing checkpoints in areas that we know are high crime, where people are coming and going out of those areas. We also increased our sex offenders. We try to check those as often as I can. For some reason or another, Pitt County has a large number of sex offenders. I think we have around 211, and the fluctuates between 211 and 230, depends on whether their probation officer has violated them. Some of them are under probation, a lot of them are not. It concerns me. We have somebody from South Carolina that moves to Greenwood and wants to live here that's a registered sex offender. I don't just be content with that. I challenge my investigator to pull his file, know his history. Is he a potential predator in the future? Is this somebody we need to protect from our kids? You know, so we take the opportunity where the law allows us to be aggressive in that. And heaven forbid one of our children be assaulted, because we're down on our game. Continue challenges. Last year our budget was $10,000 on training. This year we were allowed $15,000. I think in the past we've been accustomed to excess of $70,000, $80,000. If you really look at that, it sounds like a lot, but it's really not. When you dealing with the stuff we have to deal with and what's expected of us. Everybody knows what CSI is. We have to be trained so much in forensics. We have to do trace evidence. We need to start testing for drugs. We have the capability of doing all these things, but we're so limited. One mishap can make a difference whether this guy's found guilty of murder, whether he walks free, and I'm not going to allow my deputies to make a mistake. And some victims, the child was murdered and they were let loose, the suspect, because we didn't do our job. We can't tolerate that. And as the leadership of the county, we can't allow that. We have to have that training. We can do so much more. With the farmable homicide we just all saw, it's fresh in everybody's mind. You hear me refer to that several times. That was a traumatic event. We were able to go in there and arrest those guys in 48 hours because we had highly trained people, we had dedicated employees, and we had the determination and we were going to get it done. But what would have happened if we didn't have the latest training? But right now, see, we got DNA coming up next year or two. We've already started testing. It's going to be expected to probably in the future of us starting to do some DNA, and another step in the level of DNA. So we've got to start getting ahead of the curve. You don't learn this after you realize, hey, I made a mistake. That guy got set free because we made a mistake. So we have to look at things that's very serious. What is the results? Not today's results, but next year's results. Our training budget, our reduction of overtime. We had a hurricane, you know, that takes a lot of your overtime. Yes, some of that money is recouped back during reimbursement from FEMA. But to give you an idea on the farmable homicide, I think we spent $6,000 in that case in overtime. You may say, wow, but when that call went off at 10 o'clock on April the 1st, by 12 o'clock I had 15 detectives on that scene. We had 40 officers on the scene. That was a major event. It was tragic. We can't allow those killers to run one more day in Pitt County without being apprehended. We're satisfied they've killed other people. Where? We don't know yet. But I couldn't allow the citizens of Pitt County to go one more night without having those guys in jail to keep from killing anybody. It could be you, it could be me, it could be somebody's wife. We couldn't allow that. So anyway, that's a major problem we have. Now, we've done really good on managing overtime. Matter of fact, we were able to give some of that money back. But I need that there as a buffer. If we have the big one, we had the big hit, we had the plane crash, we have the tragic event, we had the tanker turnover, we need to provide evacuation. We have to have that money there, and we've done a good job managing. But when these guys are working 24 hours a day, they went home 4 hours and slept the first 24 hours. I sent them home at 4. I said, be back here at 7:30. They said, you kidding? I said, no. And I'm right there with them the whole time. So that encourages them to do the right thing. We have to have that money for emergency purposes. And if we don't use it, we can give it back. When we can manage time, comp time, then we can work that. But when a man misses his son's awards in the award banquets at school, one of them's dead, had to go to the hospital for cancer treatment, it was an emergency, he couldn't go, I'm going to pay the guy. You know, we're going to pay the guy overtime. If he makes those kind of sacrifices, we're going to need to pay him. Low vehicle inventory. When I say that, you're saying you're talking about cars, but we've got scrap cars we use for backup cars when one goes down. Well, those scrap cars now are put on the line because the other cars have been wrecked and torn up, so we have no extra cars. We're down to 1 or 2, and those are not even safe to be on the highway. Our inventory of our weapons. We have no weapons in our safe. Why do you need weapons? We have an officer involved shooting, and 6 people on the scene. The SBI is going to come in, he's going to take them 6 guns up. How am I going to put a gun back in that officer's holster? That gun will be gone for 6 months. If I had to order one tonight, it'd probably take 2 weeks on a rush to get it here. So how do we arm our officers? For the cost of that, you're talking $450, $500 per gun. We don't have any guns as a reserve. I've always tried to keep that, but under the demands of us having to arm detention officers, we had to deplete our whole inventory. I just find ourselves really operating in a very unsafe condition. Manager's recommendations for the sheriff's office. He recommended a budget of $10,635,000, which is actually $653,731 less than last year. Just take a minute. You can look at some of the comparisons there. Our operating expenses are less than they were in 2008, 2009. Last year when we left out of here, we knew we were up for a challenge. We were hoping, we all been predicting 2010 is going to be better, 2011 is going to be better, 2012. Well, here we are going one more time. What's next year going to be like? So we allocated and lined our office up to operate on a very bare minimum, 87% of my budget is salary. So we've had to cut back on paper. We've had to cut back on everything that we can cut back on to operate. We are operating on bare bones. We at a very dangerous level. And to cut more, I don't know that we can provide the services that we're providing now. And you just take a minute and look at that, and it's in your handout. I won't spend a lot of time on that. Recommendation cut of my first initial information has been 15 positions cut from detention and in the sheriff's side. What that equals out to is 1 clerk, supervisor, 1 telecommunicator, 1 detective, 2 road deputies, 10 detention officers. What's bothering me is about the early retirement system is you're taking people that are seasoned 25, 30-year employees and encouraging them to leave. Well, you're teasing them because they're going to take advantage of it, but what's the effect that's having on the county? I mean, it took me 25 years to get these officers trained. They're taking early retirement, and then to think you can lose that expertise and throw it out the door. 6 months ago, I was up here arguing and begging and pleading to make this one person that's retiring a supervisor and get her salary adjusted, and I showed you my idea and her concerns why we needed her then. I can't operate a clerical staff without a supervisor up there, and I mean, that's just impossible. I mean, you have to have, and that is a bare minimum supervisor. We did away with 3 supervisors to make her the 1 supervisor. So we've cut every fluff I can cut. I'm telling you, we've cut it last year to operate, and to think we can cut more, it's just going to be a nightmare. There's no way we can deal with that without really, really majorly cutting services. Telecommunication, I just shared with you about our response time. I need 2 more dispatchers now. I need to ask for 3 more dispatchers, not lose one. We had one that had to leave because of becoming a new mom, and she felt like she needed to be home right now. She's willing to work part-time. That don't cut it, guys. At 1 o'clock in the morning, 1 dispatcher, that ain't cutting, and with her being gone, it's going to be even worse. And we talk about cutting 10 detention officers. And we'll just talk about that when I get to the jail position. Recommendation from the manager, vehicle expense. We want to reduce by $30,000 is what our recommendation is for that. Okay, we already got 25 vehicles with 150,000 plus miles on it. And remind you, 2008, 2009, we had a vehicle rotation. We were predicting that we would rotate vehicles at $250,000 a year, which should equate to somewhere around 25 or 30 vehicles at that time. We haven't done that. So now those vehicles we missed, are now at 150,000 miles. I have 69 vehicles at 100,000 miles. All right, we all know that as vehicles wear out, what is it going to take? It's going to cost more to keep those vehicles running. I spent $3,500 on a $500 car to keep it running. I mean, if you fixed it for $3,500 and sent it to the auto auction, you wouldn't get $500 for it. So at what point in time do we decide enough's enough? We're not spending taxpayers' money wisely. These cars need to be safe. And the new cars that we got last time and the ones we're looking at now, you're dealing with cars with 100,000-mile warranty from drivetrain, the whole entire drivetrain, the whole car. So you're talking about a maintenance-free vehicle as far as transmissions, motors, seat belts breaking in the car, anything. So why not spend the extra money to get a quality, safe car on the road instead of patching and band-aiding? I know we got financial problems, but we've got to look at what is common sense. What makes common sense? I wouldn't spend that kind of money on my car. I mean, I just had to park it or go get a loan. So we're reducing the fuel consumption and maintenance. Now my fuel and maintenance is all in one pot. That's what it's all in. So I have to get my cars fixed, pay for my fuel, buy my tires, and all out of one thing. One pot, one big pot. All right, manager recommendations for telephone expenses. Proposing we reduce that by $26,786. All right, it's been known that that's where we bought our GPS systems and out of that line item. And to think, let me just show you. I'll let you make a decision whether or not we need a GPS on our cars. Since we put the GPS on our cars last year, early October, November, we've had no motors or no transmissions to be replaced due to driver abuse. We spent $27,000 year before last, or this year alone, $27,641 this year on wrecked vehicles. Last year we spent $36,000 plus. That's a reduction of 33%. It's a valuable tool for us on dispatching. My dispatchers look at a map. There's a car sitting there, and there's a chief deputy, there's a sheriff. Send him to that call. He's the closest deputy. And we all know that's going to cut down your driving time, response time, wear and tear, liabilities of having a wreck, killing an innocent person. So we all want to be efficient. And I'm hoping as you're seeing these things, you're saying, yes, Sheriff, last year you have done everything you can to be efficient and as tight as you can. It allows us to monitor the gas mileage. Our numbers show us we're saving $2,000 a month in fuel bill since we put the GPSs on the car. And that right there should be enough to say that is more than paid for the $26,000 we spent on the GPS system. I won't waste your time on that because we can figure that out, and that's a good savings. Recommendations on the manager for our ammo by reducing by, let me get my page here. Anyway, $19,000. We requested $69,000 and it was cut back to $50,000. Now $50,000 was what we operated on this year. But really, the reason we consented and realized we could do it on $50,000 was because the year before last we felt like we had a lot of abuse and a lot of unaccountability for ammo. Maybe had a little bit left over because we had ordered some extra. The $50,000 is not going to cut it this year. The price of ammo is like everything else, is increased. We were hoping to feel since the war was over that we see a decrease, but that is a state contract price. It's already locked in. We can't get them to budge on that price. But we require our officers to qualify, and we take it so serious that if an officer goes to the range and he don't qualify, he goes home 3 days without pay. So I either have to provide him with that. If I'm going to be that firm and that strong in my beliefs, I'm going to have to provide him the training. He needs training time. We give them 4 training days a year. And they can take advantage of it and go out. If they choose not to, then they had to pay the price for not being qualified. I expect when this officer performs, he needs to be on his best performance. He needs to be able to do his job and save that life of that person that's called him out there. If I shoot an innocent person because I missed him that far, then we got millions and millions and millions of dollars of lawsuit that the county's going to have to pay. For a little price, this is how important that is. And I mentioned earlier, our detention officers now have to be qualified. The federal marshals require us to have a gun-toting guard. He don't have to be sworn. He just has to be an armed detention officer. And I think the number's somewhere around 15 that we had to arm them. So that's additional expense, and that's where my gun inventory is going to.
They have to qualify too, don't the Sheriff?
Yes, sir. The same qualification. And like I said, if they don't meet standards, they have to go home for 3 days without pay. It's hard for me to look that man in the eye and tell him he's going home without pay and I ain't provide you with the training. So now I've got to say, am I going to compromise my expectations and keep my fingers crossed that nobody kills anybody? Or what are we going to do? Small price to pay. Courthouse security. It's been recommended by the manager that we reduce $24,000. And what that's going to entail is that's the contract that we have at courthouse security where we hire 2 security guards to work the metal detectors. We're asking for 2 more to be there. That's what we need to have. We just did a survey and we sent all you guys an invitation. Mr. McLaughlin and a couple others came to the summit and the meeting we had. The Sheriff's Association, for free, they go around and do an assessment of the courthouse, what their recommendations are. They actually come in the day without us knowing about it and do observations. And they say, y'all got it together, you do real good. We're concerned.
You still using retired deputies for that assignment at the courthouse?
Well, they work as bailiffs upstairs in the courthouse, yes, sir. Probably 80% of that staff is part-time employees. But their recommendation, our weak point is the checkpoint. We're operating with a machine there that's so out of date that we got a contract on it, but when it breaks down, they have to go find a skeleton or one that's sitting in a closet somewhere and nobody's using it to repair that. I'm not asking for that machine to be replaced. I'm just asking that we keep the 2 guards there. They're recommending that we put armed guards there. And their question to me was, well, what's that lady going to do that's getting paid this salary, $12 an hour, if a guy walks in with a machine gun? What's she going to do? Well, she's going to pick the radio up and say, get somebody down here. Well, how many people are going to be killed in that get down here? So that's what our concern was. 2 weeks ago, we had a guy run to the courthouse with a knife chasing his girlfriend. We were able to arrest him and apprehend him before he even got to the metal detector. We are, we all know in any given day, Mr. Owens can attest, we have over 1,000 people come to that courthouse in a day. You got courtrooms with 750 people in them sometimes because of traffic court. But are we going to, first of all, let our guard down on our courtroom security? Are we going to jeopardize our county and state employees that have offices in there? Small price to pay, $25,000 for that. I think we need to say, I'm surprised you're not asking me why I don't have 4 people there. And why we don't, because we don't have the funding. We need more people there. Their recommendation is have 4 armed guards there. And actually their recommendation is we have another checking station. We got one whole end. It needs to be a checking station at the sheriff's office entrance, because the way the design of the building, just one station can't do it. You got people that can get into the clerk's office, register deeds, and throughout the back doors of the courthouse if they're smart enough to be able to get in and do whatever they want to do. And briefly, we've taken that so serious that we've gone in and changed swipe cards. We updated swipe cards. We cut people off, and no longer. We found that people had swipe cards that had been dead for 5 years. We found swipe cards that attorneys had that were interns and no longer interns. So we cleaned a lot of that up. We're doing what we can to make that a safer environment. The courthouse is a target that somebody would love to come in and commit violence. Small price to pay. Manager's recommendations on the detention center. He's recommended $12,684,819. This is $1,018,489 less than our current revised budget, and $835 million less than required. And there's a brief history of where we're at on comparisons for the past year. Our average inmate count is 437 people.
That's going up this week because of Junebug and Sergeant Peterson, ain't it?
Yeah, I'm about what were we today? 505? 518 today.
Well, I want to say this on their behalf. At the doctor's office yesterday, a young man come and said that he was digging a grave when they come put the cuffs on him. Says he told me that Lieutenant Hyman, we call him Junebug, that's what I call him. He said he'll find you if you're in the graveyard. And
he's a great employee. But just a little comment on that, some people were saying, well, you can't get them to pay while they're in jail. These guys ain't even picking the phone up, calling and promising to pay. So they're not making no effort to pay. The only thing they got to do is call and say, hey, put me on the plan. They won't even do that. They just avoiding. So like I said earlier, we're teaching responsibility. We're trying to figure out in the future, how can we make Pitt County a safer place? And it's all about responsibility. Let's see where we at. Our functional capacity is 465, and I got them to explain that in there for you. If you have a 489 capacity, you got to remember you can't put so many females. If you have more males than you do females, we can't put them in the same area. So we're currently 36 inmates over function capacity, and that number's already changed since yesterday. Any given day, we probably have 40 or 50 people book in, book out of the detention center. We currently have over 500. We just talked about that. Proper staffing is critical for the inmate safety. We have 29 inmates in the Pitt County Detention Center charged with murder. 29. 23 of them charged with first-degree murder. So what is that going to tell you? Officer safety, they have to be in single cells, they require special attention. These people have nothing to lose. They will hurt an officer in a minute. We have to care and protect our officers there.
So what you're saying, you're full all the time?
All the time. So to think we're going to cut back is by law we got to house these. In my presentation, I explained that. Let me keep going. Food service. The manager proposed to reduce the food by $138,000. We requested $938,000 in food service. And this is going to break it down for you and tell you basically the population and how tight we are. And through our negotiations, redoing, we've got our meals down to $1.58 a meal. And it explains it right there for you. No room for increase of population of weekenders or additional federal inmates. Recommendation of jail supplies by $20,000. We spend about $100,000. They want to reduce that by $20,000. We have to go to the bathroom. We have to have trash bags. We have to have toilet paper. We have to have cleaning supplies. And those that have come out of the jail, I appreciate it. And you should know that we run a first-class jail. It's clean. If we don't keep the germs down, not only are we going to have 700 inmates sick, we're going to have employees not showing up for work. Because believe me, they get the same thing that they're exposed to. They hand in hand with the inmates. They carry it home. You know, we teach our guys to take your shoes off, wash your clothes before you get in the house. Don't even go into your house with the clothes on. We all know what MRSA can do. We got colds, flus, staph infections, and we really have got a handle on that and kept that down. $20,000 reduction would not able us to do what we need to do. The unexpected. We continuously having like I spoke earlier, increase of sex offenders. We require our clerks to spend time. It probably takes an hour to two to register a new one. Our sex offenders have to come in, some 3 months, some monthly, some every 6 months. Depends on what their judgment is in court. We have a sworn staff member that goes around and checks those, in addition to our patrol officers that go around and check it. If they ain't home, we lock them up, put them in jail, try to get them sent to Raleigh. Increase of concealed weapon permits. Our clerks have to process this, and I mentioned we have volunteers in place, and that is a revenue source for the county as well as the concealed carry. So we don't want to lack on that service. I don't want people coming and saying, I waited more than 2 hours to get my concealed carry, because they're not going to spend that $100 to get the concealed carry. They're going to be frustrated and leave. So it is to our advantage not only to provide that service, but make sure they are encouraged to come in and purchase the permit that we generate revenue off of. The unexpected, the formal homicide. I spoke earlier about the $6,000 increase that 1 month. And overtime. We basically had to put everything on hold to solve that case. But now the investigation is still ongoing, and the deputies are working, but they're back on their regular clock, so that's not costing us the overtime. But I wanted to bring that out as that's a big incident. That's a big tragedy that we have to be prepared to be able to meet that need. We all remember the James Richardson case. we had to hire extra security. And as these high-profile homicides are coming to trial, we know we're going to have additional help up in the courtroom. So what's the price tag we put on safety? As a citizen, what are we willing to give up? Do we cut the DARE program? Do we stop dispatching for other agencies? Presently, we dispatch for Winterville now, Simpson, Fountain, Bethel. Do we stop dispatching for those? Do we shut down at night? Our front desk service, do we cut out to 8 to 5:30 every day? Our truancy officers, do we cut that out?
What about Grambling?
Pardon me?
What about Grambling?
Well, we provide protection for them now. They no longer have a police officer, so we provided protection for them. And that's another item we had to take on this year. Their budget restraints wouldn't allow them to do that. But they were generous enough to give us a substation out there because they knew if they would provide a substation, it's going to provide a deputy. Smart thinking for them. They did a good job, and we worked very welcome and partnering with them, working with that. We reduced our federal inmate count by 45 to meet the reduction of staffing in our detention center. Did we lose that that count, that money that we regenerate from that? Crime prevention programs. We have neighborhood watch programs all over this county. My goal is to get every neighborhood to participate in the neighborhood watch program. Several of you commissioners have been to several of those meetings, and you see the concerns people have. How do you tell them we're not going to do that? Discontinue the sheriff's work inmate pickup trash where we're out on the roads on in days picking up trash and doing other community service events. Do we cut that out? To reduce law enforcement services after midnight. I go back to the old days where we had 4 people working at night. You just can't. It's just a small price to pay.
My district is all in Greenville. Do your department and Greenville PD patrol jointly work together on patrol sometime? Or?
Sometimes, generally, what our response to Greenville is they call for assistance. We're there. Just got a mutual aid agreement from request the other day to work with the July 4th weekend with them. We work our task force together. We work drugs together. We work investigations. We commonly find that the same people they're looking for, we're looking for. So we have a good communications line between the two, and we work. If we're going by and we monitor Greenville, there's armed robbery in progress, we respond to it, stand by till they get there. Several times that's paid off and enabled them to get their case solved by us being there. Do we cut our electronic monitoring program back? Do we take these guys, get rid of the feds, put us child support people back in jail, take those 5 officers I got doing electronic monitoring to make up the difference for the patrol? I'm not in agreement of any of the recommendations of the cut of personnel and operation. The manager spoke on yesterday that the sheriff felt like he couldn't meet that. I don't want to stand here and say I'm not willing to give. We lined ourselves up last year to get to the bare minimum. Last year's recommendation scared me to death. I didn't think we were going to make it. But we've been able to do it through innovative ideas, to come up with new things. I get comments every day from citizens. I've never seen so many deputies in my neighborhood. I feel safe. I want to live in Pitt County now. I feel safe that you're out there. We all know if Pitt County is going to recover from this depression, we have got to look attractive to new people. Why would they click Greenville, North Carolina on Google and say, am I going to work at the hospital there, or am I going to work at the hospital in another town? Oh, y'all just had 4 homicides last week. Y'all just made 50 kilos of drug arrests. Why would they come here? I'm not sending my kids to the school program there. We've got to maintain that service. We've got to maintain order in this county. We will never grow. Why would somebody come here and invest $300,000 and build a new house where we're going to make revenue off of it, we're going to make taxes, we're going to make permits off of it, if they don't feel safe? We've got to be attractive. We've got to maintain safety. We've got to keep our schools going. We've got to keep our law enforcement, our public safety. And if we just cut back, it's going to go rampant. I mean, we'll never recover. You need to look at it as a business sense. What can we do? And I'm telling you, I'm not trying to sound that we can't do it. We have tightened our belts so tight, and now I'm faced with the challenges of the vehicles. You know, there's been some talk about we may get a few, but you saw the numbers there. We're, 3 years from now, we're going to be $750,000 behind on cars replacements. Where the idea we had in '08 that we replace 25 cars a year and keep them in rotation. I've encouraged my guys on our management team as well as our employees to price shop. We've get our cars repaired at the cheapest place we can get them repaired at. That enables us to operate on that the amount that we have to operate on. We changed locations where we were paying $3,000 for transmissions. I got a deal now with a local dealership. We get them for $1,400 with I think a 50,000 mile warranty on the car. Price shop, saved money. We're operating in what you gave me to operate on. We were challenged with that. We price shop for office supplies. We price shop for equipment that we need. We price shop on our guns. We don't just call and do business with the person we've always done business with. I've got people personally mad with me. They were friends with my daddy, and they were friends with so-and-so's daddy, and now I'm not letting them tow my cars because they were charging $85 and I'm getting it for $35. I'm sorry, it's taxpayers' money. I have to be a steward of that. The people of Pitt County expect me as a sheriff to be a good steward of our money. To say we can cut, we are as tight as we can go right now. If we cut anything, it's going to be you guys having to tell me what we want to do away with. We are doing all we can do to function right now. I mean, and provide the service. Last year, when I left out of here, I challenged my employees. I said, let's do what we can to generate additional revenues. I showed you we generate over $600,000 in additional revenues. Small portion. Can we get favor shined on us and maybe get a small portion of that money for vehicles? And we're told no. We're told, why should you get that? Well, then why should we keep incentive working on that? My time sheet will reflect you. I work 140 hours, 120, 140 hours every 2 weeks. I'm a straight salary employee. When is enough's enough? Do I stay and work every night till 11 or 12 o'clock to generate revenues? Or is it come a time that I have to start thinking about my safety, my health, my family? My family, tell you, they ain't seen me in 2 years, but I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to make the county a safer place. I'm willing to do that, but when there's no incentive for county employees to do better, just a little bit of time we did that, we raised $600,000. We could have raised $1 million if we'd have kept on track, but why? Why? What was the incentive for my employees to come out and work on Saturday and Sundays to get to federal prisons for the not to be able to benefit from it? Ain't saying we want it. I ain't saying,
Sheriff,
ma'am, sir.
may I ask them this question?
Yes, sir.
You made a statement there that you made 600,000, but you could have made more, but there's no incentive to do it. I don't quite understand why you say you wouldn't get something from if you go beyond that 600.
Cost of money is taken and put in the shortfall, the county shortfall. And what I'm saying is, how many hours a day do they expect us to keep working? I mean, I'm no good if I'm dead. So I have to draw a line in the sand and say enough's enough. Do I work from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock tonight, working the federal inmate camp, making the phone calls, getting the people out? I mean, it's a daily operation to do that. It's just like running a Holiday Inn. You got to work it every day. You got 10 beds, you pick the phone up, you call, you beg.
I understand that, but I didn't understand the other part.
Thank you,
Go
sir.
ahead. Thank
Well, I don't want a false impression on that. We have given a lot, and I'm not in the revenue business. I'm in the public safety business. But when an opportunity sits there, and I don't take advantage of to get that, and that's not going to last forever. It's going to last a short period of time. And we don't take advantage of getting that money and putting it to good use, it's going to be gone. So as a leader, I'm looking at capturing that.
I'm going to ask the finance director to tell where that money goes, actually.
It goes into the general fund. But it's no different than any other department is treated. If Kathy's staff in the tax office overcollects on your property tax rate, her staff and her department doesn't personally benefit. The excess goes to support the greater good of Pitt County. And she would not say, well, where's the incentive for me to quit collecting, because you've charged her with collecting every penny that's collectible. No department personally benefits when they overcollect unanticipated revenue. It all falls into the general fund to underwrite all operations of the
Register of
county.
Deeds is another example.
And that
Things-
goes,
as an elected
that goes,
official.
all I wanted clarified was this is not something new. This is something that is in place for all departments. Do you have just a little bit more time before we start with the
I
questions?
just
I
wanted
can
to
take a
clarify
question.
something
I need a
here.
break.
Okay.
How much of this?
All right, some of us have been involved in this. These people you're talking about, it's their job to get that money because they owe that money to Pitt County.
Right.
The sheriff's department is going way beyond that. If he doesn't put, oh, wait a minute, let me finish.
Job of running the jail.
That's right. And when he brings money in, that's a plus part. But the people on taxes, they owe in Pitt County. It's her job to go out and get that. He can sit on his butt and do nothing, and he won't get the money. So he's got to take the initiative, or his people take the initiative to go out and get it. And the Board of Education is a good example.
But we estimate that he will make X number of dollars renting beds to the feds every year in his budget, just like we estimate every other revenue in the budget. And people over-collect and under-collect all year long to underwrite all the costs.
All right, when the superintendent came up here, the question was asked to her, you have a fund balance of $3 million and some odd dollars. And they said, turn it in. She went on to say, no, she didn't want to turn that money in because she didn't want to give it to the county because she had use for it. Right. It's the same principle right here. He has use for that money that he is going to make. I think, wait a minute, let me finish. I think that any department, when they make additional money beyond what was programmed for them to make, then that department should have the right to take and to spend that money. If it's the sheriff, let him buy cars or whatever his greatest need is.
Well,
they know
James,
that.
How do we underwrite a gap then when some revenue doesn't come in on target?
Then they better get off their lazy butt and make sure they get earn some more money.
Mr. James, you could be under collecting not through the efforts of staff, but through the general population who chose not to pay their taxes.
It may not be a department, it could be sales tax. Who do we hold accountable to if the economy goes south? And the sales tax, we need the sheriff's department, like all county departments, are part of the collective whole, and the whole holds the entire general fund balance together.
I know that.
If the sheriff's office raised all the revenue to cover their costs, then anything they over collect, I could understand because they'd be a business. But right now, you have a $26 million operation that, for the majority, is funded with property taxes and sales tax. A far, far greater percentage of that budget is funded with the greater good than opposed to the revenues the sheriff independently generates.
But we just don't agree on it.
Okay, if we'll move on as far as this is concerned, the main thing I want clarified is that this is not an exception to the sheriff's department. This goes on throughout all of county government for all of the departments and has many over the years. So it's not like it's an exception. Correct. If that is kind of what I want clarified, and there may be others who don't agree with it happening that way, but that's the way it's happened historically, and that's the way it's established. Are you
sorry
finished
I
with
interrupted you, Madam Chair
No, that's fine. Are you
No, ma'am.
and Sheriff.
finished? If you'll, okay, we'll
Just
give
closing
the
that
rest of
comment up,
your-
I just wanted the record to be clear on what I was saying is, as a taxpayer, I don't want my property tax to go up 1 cent. And one penny is equal to $1 million. So if I can generate $1 million beyond what I normally do by giving them my time to work to get this done outside of my law enforcement duties. I'm not in the revenue business. I don't run the tax department, but I see an opportunity sitting there. Why not grasp that opportunity to relieve the taxpayers of $250,000 to buy cars with? I should, I look at it as, God, I wish I had more business people would think like that. Maybe we should encourage our county employees to look for opportunities to save. I'm not asking for that money to go in my pocket. I'm just asking to relieve the taxpayers of a burden that we keep talking about we've got to replace. And we need this money, and that's all. And with that being said, that's all I'm going to say about that. But what's the incentive? I need to be focusing on crime prevention. I need to be worried about, I'm going to lose 12 deputies. I need to be focused on that. So the question to you guys is, what are we willing to give up? I'm not trying to say I'm not a team player. I am as tight as I can go. Any changes we make are going to devastate the operation and the safety of Pitt County citizens. Are we willing to compromise that? If anybody in this room without raising your hand been a victim of a crime, you know what it's like to see that deputy pull up there. You know what it's like to hear that siren coming. It's a good sound. What are we going to do? And in closing, I want to thank the men and women of the Pitt County Sheriff's Office and Detention Center for their hard work and dedication and them sharing my vision that I challenged them with last year to make this happen on the budget we had and to generate this extra money. And I feel like we've done our part giving back to the county, and I'm very proud. I couldn't do it without them. They need a pat on the back, and we need to really be appreciative of our county employees. And that's all I have. And if you want some questions, I'd be glad to take them.
Thank you, Sheriff Elks. Before we move forward to our questions or comments from the commissioners, the manager has requested, it seems like the budget, I'm not sure about what the budget actually is, and I don't know about the rest of the, except what we heard yesterday from you after
Okay.
the presentation. So,
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Mr. Manager.
Yes, I did want to make a couple of comments in regards to Sheriff Elks' presentation. First comment being, as the finance officer stated just a moment ago, his combined budget between the Sheriff's Office, Detention Center, and Jail Medical is almost $26 million. And he had pointed out in his presentation that I'm looking at cuts of $653,000, almost $654,000. That's the equivalent of the 2.5% across the board that we've tried to hold everybody to the same. I want to point out that last year in the budget process, the Sheriff's Department was not cut at the same level everybody else was. They only suffered half the cut. So actually in the last year, they had more money in their budget than the other departments on average. Second point being, there's really not 15 positions that are truly being cut in this budget. There are only 9 positions being cut. 6 positions that were attributed to the detention center, he agreed to at the very beginning of last fiscal year not to fill those, and because we were leaving one block of the detention center unfilled. So it's really, in my estimation, it's kind of unfair to say I'm cutting 15 positions. Really, it's a net of 9 positions. Also want to talk about in terms of reducing line items, I just don't go out there and say that I think the Sheriff's Department should eliminate the GPS tracking system that he has seen great benefit on. We're looking at last year expenditures compared to current and looking at what the patterns are of within those expenditure line items. Also wanted to say that that in working with the sheriff, myself and the finance officer met with him and his staff on multiple occasions, trying to drive this budget just down to a level 1 scenario compared to level 2 at a full 5%. Basically, I was told after we met several times that he cut as far as he could cut and he couldn't cut any further. As he stated to you this morning, that if any further cuts were going to come, either I as a manager would have to identify those, or you as a board would have to tell him what would have to be cut or who would have to be sent home. So I took it in my hands to drive down his line items down to 2.5%. And out of the $26 million budget, asking him to return $653,000. If he has a better way of arriving at the bottom line of those cuts by rearranging dollars and cutting elsewhere, as manager, I'd be more than open to that, and I would imagine you as a board would too. But in order to balance the budget, I took the actions that were needed to do that.
And in conjunction with that, and then we'll get to the commissioners going around, if the budget as requested by the Sheriff's Department, how would that affect, if we funded it completely, how would that affect the tax rate?
His request to, as compared to the manager's recommendation, is about $1.1 million apart. So in order to fund his requested budget, it would take greater than a penny tax increase.
On top of the 1.5
More
cent.
than 1 penny on top of
The
what we're
revenue
requesting
neutral
for the
rate
level 1. Okay. We'll start down here with Commissioner Webb.
Morning. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Sheriff. I guess for me, because this is probably the most personal one for me, because of having a 14-year law enforcement career, I've had a lot of experience in dealing with the Pitt County Sheriff's Office all the way back when Randy was Sergeant Gentry, and over the years he and I have gone different directions in hairstyles. But you know, I've been in some sticky situations over my career where deputies have shown up, and I'm glad they were there. They've quite a few times contributed to me even being sitting here, as well as your jail staff, because I've gotten into some hairy situations in there as well. Just a few things I wanted to point out on some clarification, especially when you talk about the guns.
Yes.
People can't share them even when they're off duty and all, because if I'm correct, training standards dictates the serial numbers assigned to that officer. You can't rotate them around. So, and with the increase, and this concerns me because I've investigated officer-involved shootings before on an administrative level, being a member of a shoot team, and that is that gun will be taken up, and if you don't have a replacement, that officer is off the street. And am I correct in when you get replaced, the firearm, you have to qualify with that new one too, don't you?
You're supposed to, yes, sir.
And so then you're tacking on to the ammo cost. And with the increase in violent crime, I mean, it's bad to say, and I hope our officers' aim is true, that the likelihood of an officer-involved shooting is high. The more violent criminals we deal with, the increase in gang activity, and whatever factors contribute to that, but it's just where we are, is that is a very high possibility that one of our officers will be involved in a shooting, and we have to have weapons and we have to have ammunition for training. As to the Fed and the budget, is there a projected number or projected amount of money for this budget that we're expecting to get from Fed Bed this year?
Yes. Okay. We're counting on, I believe it's still 87.
I think you raised
the number of beds.
It gets up to 90.
Okay, 90 Fed beds through the year at $78 per day, which equates to how much money?
2.9.
$2.9 million. The $2.9 million, the original justification of taking on Fed beds was to use that money to staff up the detention center so we could almost fully operate it. We do have one block
that.
that's
I just want to know if there was a line item in there. I mean, my question would be, and I know it would be outside the normal operation, but if they did 115 was their average, and because, for example, like what I brought up with the school board yesterday, they have a $3.7 million fund balance, which is roundabout county money, and which means we've overpaid the school system by $3.7 million. That if the sheriff can bring in more than that, because these are extraordinary times, can we not take the extraordinary measure of allowing them to keep some of that surplus?
If you want it to impact your fund balance, because over collections in the general fund help your fund balance and helps offset any other underperforming revenue.
But in the budget as it's structured, we've already allotted for what we're going to do in fund balance. Like if nothing changes, what we're going to have in fund balance or what we're not going to have in fund balance is what it is. So this would be an extra, is what I'm asking. That it wouldn't negatively affect our fund balance.
Sure.
Because we wouldn't.
It could if your revenue targets don't come in as expected. In the spring of next year, if you had a great feeling that for 9-10 months everything had gone great and I'm over collecting on all my revenues, but how do you know that? Because everything in that budget, your $73 million in ad valorem collections is an estimate.
And the budget's an estimation anyway. And that's what I'm saying. If we're estimating it and we feel good about it, would it be a problem? Could we do that? Because, prime example, again, the school board has almost $4 million that we have overpaid them, that's sitting in fund balance. I know what they've used it for, but and we talk about cooperation, but we have to be willing to be, in my opinion, we got to be nimble. I know what you're getting at. I know that what your motivations are.
Well, and my job is to correct,
yes, exactly.
to keep your fund balance up, keep your bond rating solvent, and again, right now, you haven't collected the first property tax for next year, the first sales tax, and you could say, Sheriff, next year we think you're going to over collect by 300, so we're going to let you spend it in July, and then Fed beds could drop off in February and you not collect the 2.6 you thought you were going to collect. That's the downside to making a decision in advance of the collection, is what, Neil referred to, what if we have a disaster? Well, what if collections fall off? What if Fed bed numbers fall off? Just be aware that if you estimate you're going to collect it in advance of collecting it, the downside is the worst can happen.
Absolutely, and I understand that. And I'm not saying that, we don't have to release it immediately. I'm talking about the ability to have it and the ability to have it available, that if he hits a number and pulls that in, and because what do we estimate as far as this budget is done? What is that based on? 100% property tax collection or 96?
96.5.
96.5. And this year, what are we at? We're about 97 right now.
Well, we're hoping to hit 97 by June 30th. But
right now, we're at 95.7.
That's right. I got confused. We're just an inch ahead of where we were last year. Okay. Well, again, that's my thing, because the school seemed very unwilling to help us with it. I know the community college wouldn't want to give it up, but I'm just talking about ways to bridge to the next year. Because like I said yesterday, I've ridden in a car that has 150,000 miles on it at speed, and
And I don't want you to think we're not supportive, because we haven't replaced any county cars. It's not just the sheriff who
We
hasn't
understand. I
got county
understand
cars. But my role as your CFO is to tell you to be aware of spending your chickens before they're hatched and counting your eggs before they're in your basket, so to speak. So if you choose to take that action, just be prepared for if the worst happens afterwards.
I think it's something we can explore and structure in a way that, we can buffer. And when it comes to vehicles, I always like to point out that a social services car doesn't have to do the same thing that a deputy's car does.
No, but
an
that
activity
social
bus
worker doesn't want to be in a driveway with an irate parent and can't get in her car and leave.
Can't get the sheriff out
and
there.
she doesn't want the sheriff to not be able to get there
That's
either.
true.
And or to show up without a pistol if he needs it. But that's just my opinion. And again, it's probably more personal to me because I'm in law enforcement, and I know that you're doing what you're supposed to do. I'm not challenging that. But what I'm challenging is I think that we need to be very nimble, and we need to have all options open. And that I know over collection and things, they are what they are, but not all departments are the exact same. And he could shut down at a certain amount, and I know he's not threatening to do that, but I know they have done that some because of time management. But anyway, that's my comment on it. I appreciate the presentation, and thank you for your input as well. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hammond?
Yes,
Questions or
ma'am.
comments?
Every area of the budget being reduced is not following our priorities of education and public safety being the main priorities of this board. That's what I'm saying. And as much as he's challenged his whole staff to help do what they could in savings and generate a revenue, I know what you said, Milton. Everybody's on the umbrella. Once some savings come in, it can't go directly to the department that does the saving, but you got to look at the whole picture. And if there's other areas of county service that needs some of that revenue, it has to be placed where it's most needed. But Glenn made a statement a while ago here. It's not like him having a fund balance. He don't have a fund balance that he can tap, and we have always said that we're going to do everything we can to stop fumbling in our fund balance to fund general expenses. So where are we? That's what I want to know. Public safety, education and public safety, they are our main priorities. Is that correct? And so the Board of Education was here yesterday, and they gave you their report, and you're listening to the sheriff this morning. In other words, he's saying he needing some people to respond. He need dispatchers right now. I believe you said when you first opened your statement, you said this is a everyday 24 hours a day operation. You Monday through Sunday. You forgot holidays. You didn't include them in there.
That's right.
But
Commissioner Hammond, that's one reason yesterday in my presentation I floated the idea we need to probably to consolidate back the Sheriff's Communication Center and the county's primary PSAP in one location. If he's got staffing problems there, wouldn't it make sense to co-locate them in one location where the personnel of the two can be combined to cover staffing patterns?
Makes sense.
Okay. Is that it, Mr. Hammond? Okay.
well, I believe he's not restricted to 24 hours a day needing dispatchers. I believe you said it's from 1 a.m. to
Generally, at
morning.
night, we have to scale down due to staffing and numbers, and we try to predict and keep our fingers crossed that's going to be a slow night.
But it is 24/7.
Yes, ma'am.
At the courthouse anyway.
And that's one person answering the phone, and that same person logging that call, and that same person dispatching that call, and that same person being the lifeline for that deputy that has 2 seconds to scream, I need some help.
Right.
That one person answered the phone is not that person you were saying that got them maps that they're viewing to pinpoint the location.
Yes, sir.
Is you just got one person doing that now,
Yes, sir.
doing both jobs.
Well, at night, yeah,
night.
that's the same person. And watching the cameras in the courthouse for security as well.
Okay, Mr. Hammond, are you finished?
Andrew Smith.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'm concerned particularly about one item. Considerable reference has been made to a fund balance that the public schools have. The public schools, I'm one of two liaisons with the public schools. They would gladly reconsider the benefits of some of that fund balance if the General Assembly was not still in session. Their biggest problem right now, that's the public schools, is what the General Assembly is going to do to them before they adjourn. They need that cushion in fund balance to cover what the General Assembly is or may do to them before they adjourn, and that's a real problem. So I think we need to be careful not to criticize the public schools for a fund balance when the General Assembly is in session, because no telling what they're going to do to the public schools. Most of their budget in General Assembly has to do with public schools throughout the state, and they may very well severely cut the public schools before they leave. That's my biggest concern, that we not make too much of the fund balance that the public schools have when the General Assembly is in session. I appreciate what the sheriff and his staff is doing, but I think you said, Mr. Elks, that the county manager and the county finance officer has spent considerable time with you discussing the proposed new budget.
Yes, sir.
And he has had a very difficult, the county manager has had a very difficult situation in preparing a budget for next year. And one of the things that across the board I believe he has done is spend the time with county departments and affiliated agencies to discuss the proposed budget for the new year. And I think everybody should know that the county manager has spent a lot of time in preparing his proposed budget. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
Commissioner Garris.
Thank you. Let me say, first of all, I appreciate everything you have done, Sheriff, and all of your organization. You have a fine organization, and we appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you.
I guess one of my reactions to your presentation, because we do have a challenge, and it is a countywide challenge. We have challenged every department to cut their expenses because we do not want to have a tax increase, and we have asked you to do the same thing. But it appears to me that what you have done is spent most of your time explaining why you can't do what the manager has recommended rather than explaining how you can do it. In fact, you made a statement a couple of times that if we, in essence, don't grant what you are requesting, then we need to tell you what to cut. Well, I really think that is more of your role than it is our role, for you to determine what has to be cut because you're the expert. And it is a challenge for every department. You know, we had Department of Social Services this morning also, and they have the same concerns about providing services for the community with limited dollars. It's a countywide issue, and $26 million is I believe the second largest budget we have other than the school system. So that's significant dollars, but I know you also have a significant challenge and a significant task. And one of the things that really concerns me about your organization is your cars. And we have been working very hard trying to replace some of those cars, but again, it is a limited amount of dollars. Now, I know that some on this board have indicated that maybe we need to increase your funding. Well, I like to also remind this board that some on this board have also said that they don't even support the level 1 presentation that the manager has given us, which means we stay revenue neutral, which means the tax rate would in fact go up. And some have indicated they would support level 2, which means that the tax rate remains the same, so we would have another $2.5 million shortfall in the budget that the manager has presented for level 1. Now, if we were to grant you everything you're requesting, then not only would we have to go with level 1, which would be the revenue neutral, but we'd also have to add a penny to that. So our tax rate would not be the 68 cents at revenue neutral, but it would be 69 cents. And I think we just need to consider all those facts and do the best we can, and I'm sure we will. We're going to work together and do the best we can. Just not going to make everybody in the county happy one way or the other, but we're going to do the best we can. And again, thank you for everything that you and your organization does.
Can I say something? Can I say something back?
Yes,
Sure.
sir.
I promised the people in 2010, when I'm elected, just like you are,
Absolutely.
people expect the office of the sheriff to provide a certain service. And if I was to back up and say, okay, I'll give you 10 positions, I would have been disingenuous in my statements to that. I am sold out to provide a certain service. And I don't think we're where we need to be. I need 10 more deputies. But I'll keep referring back. This ain't just about this year. This is about the recession that we're in. This has been going on since 2008. Last year's challenges scared me to death. I've tasked all my people that are here today. These are exempt employees. They don't work 40 hours a week. They work 60, 70, and 80 and don't get paid for it. But we're willing to do this because I'm driving these guys home. The Band-Aid is the rubber band is about to break on these guys because I am pushing them so hard that we've got to do this. We've got to get this done. We've got to provide the service. The people are looking at me to provide the service. And if you're going to have to cut, that's fine. But I want the people to know that the people they elected are the ones that chose to dictate the service that the sheriff's going to provide. I'm on whatever hand you give me, I'll reorganize. I'll do whatever I can. I'll send people home. I'll reorganize. But it's not in the willingness of the sheriff to give that up. And on the echo of the feds, when I took office in 2010, we had 50 federal inmates at $50 a day. Through negotiations and hard work, I was able to get that to $87 a day and $78 a day. The sheriffs across the state would fight for that. And that is just for now. That ain't gonna last long. So why not capture that opportunity as a good leader to say, hey, I'm gonna relieve the county and the taxpayers of this burden. I mean, I could probably run for county commissioner and win because I've got great ideas. But what I'm trying to say is, as a steward of our money, we've got to do what we can, and it's just an opportunity. And we talk about we don't reward people for doing things. Well, in the past years, is when people manage budgets and do a good job, they get bonuses, they get raises. So in a sense, we not reward the department, but reward their effort. And I'm not asking for a reward. I'm just asking to be able to function. And when I stand before the people in 2014, I did what I said I was going to do. I found who killed your son. I found who raped your daughter. I made your home safe.
And Chairman Garris, let me just make a comment. The sheriff, in his slide presentation, he highlighted just a couple of items that were the most important that the county manager was recommending cutting. There's a lot of more cuts that we think we can live with. For instance, office supplies, $15,000 is cut from that budget. We think we can manage on that. Ammunition was one of the things we did not think we could get by on. So we're not arguing every cut, just the most important cuts. We highlighted 4 or 5 cuts in the sheriff's office and at the detention center that we feel that will make it impossible to operate.
Thank you.
And another thing, without the jeopardizing investigations and undercover operations, we have taken a lot of drugs off the street in Pitt County. I can't talk about it because it would jeopardize, it will blow your mind if you know how much we've taken off the street. And that's the hard work, that's the dedication. And, like I said earlier, we've got a lot of good county employees, and I would love to see us give these guys a raise and do what we can. But we know we can't, but how much longer can we keep pushing them? Greenville Police Department is getting a big raise this year. I guarantee when they have an open process, I'm going to lose 7 or 8, just like that, and we'll be gone. Can't blame them a bit.
Okay. Just one statement, and then I'll get to you. Just to reiterate that the cuts that the manager made or referred to, he and his leadership team had to come up with because they were not suggested, right, so to speak. Is that?
Basically, I build off in our
What you
multiple
got.
meetings, what I got from the sheriff's
Right.
office to
Exactly.
get to 2.5, I took additional
Okay,
cuts on top of it.
just wanted to go with that. Okay, Commissioner Smith?
I would probably take a different thought than any of us have. When we look at the different parts of the county, the fire department, the schools, the sheriff's department, and other departments. We look at the fire departments and rescue. When they have a fundraiser, where does the money go? It stays at the fire department that has the fundraiser. The rescue department does the same, and rescue people are hired by the county, but it stays within that department. I don't have any problem with the sheriff's department raising money and letting it stay in the sheriff's department as long as it's spent for capital needs, cars, guns, or whatever it needs. Training the officer. This is just a little different approach than the rest has had, but I see, you look at the school system. They have ball games at schools, and where does the money go to that when they have admission to these ball games or sporting events? They stay at that particular school. And so this is something that we need to think about. These other departments and entities of the county, they keep the money. And maybe it's time for us to explore the possibility of the different departments that we fund, if they have the ability to make money, like the sheriff's department, by renting out jail space to the federal government. We need to look at this. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yes, sir. Mr. James?
I'm not in a dip with this self. I believe in taking action. And that action is going to be that the buck will stop with us. And I agree with what Commissioner Garris has said a great deal. If there's going to be a cut, sheriff is the man to make it, not this board. I believe it 100%, because you're in a position whether you like it or not. The people elected you to make the best decisions that you can possibly make for them. But a motion is going to be made that all money that's made by each department, extra, above and beyond what has been taking place, such as this year, the sheriff would have got about $600,000 to buy cars and things such as that. But a motion is going to be made that that money stay within that department to give them an incentive to take and to do more. And I believe that will help us a great deal, and I know it will help the sheriff. I'm a little different than most of you. I'm older than most of you. And I've been through a lot.
Older than all of us.
And I've been through a lot in my life. I know what ammunition is. I fought in World War II. You can do with less ammunition in most cases. There are certain people that can shoot, and there are some, I don't care how many darn times you give them a bullet, they can't hit that much. I can tell you that from experience. So you're born with it to a certain degree, and of course, I know a lot of it, Neil, you create yourself in practice. But if they got to practice 1,000 times to be able to hit the target, then they got a problem. But anyway, I believe that wholeheartedly. And of course, I've been preaching this now for 8 months pertaining to that. And every time I ran about this very same thing. No, it's going to go into the budget. The buck stops with this group, and it's time that it stops. And like Ethan says, Commissioner, he is right. If they get out and they work and have the incentive to take and save money, social services can save a lot of money by reorganization. The sheriff's department, and I don't care what you say, dear, you can save more money. There's nobody who can't save more money by reorganizing. I'm in the farming business and other business, and I can save money by going over it. I might have to go over it 4 or 5 times. And every time I go over it, I'm going to save some money because I get new ideas. I've said enough. Money's hard. It's going to be hard to come by.
Mr. Owens?
I don't know there's much left to say but this. I, as a commissioner and as an individual, has been supportive all of my life and all of my tenure on this board of public safety and education. I will continue to be supportive of both of that. The manager's done what he was directed to do. He's come back and brought a proposed budget using the figures of 0.25 as a deduction to try to comply with the reevaluation and all of those things. The sheriff has done exactly what he was supposed to do, come in, presented what he felt that the needs of his department were. Both of them have done their duty. We as commissioners will have to determine where these monies are coming from. Sheriff, I'm sure, doesn't give a tinker's damn about where I appreciate what he's done or what his staff has done, nor what the rest of you. He wants money. He needs money for his needs. And I want to say one thing, though. Not being an officer like Glenn, but if you need ammunition and if you need guns, Scott, why isn't that an emergency that you've got authority from the fund balance to give the sheriff?
Well, if you would approach the board and ask for that.
No, I mean you've got certain amounts of money, faction.
I have the authority within his own department to transfer between line items if he were to ask. He would need to ask.
Actually, under your ordinance, the sheriff has the latitude to rearrange his whole budget to address his needs. Scott Scott has no independent authority to appropriate fund balance or contingency. That takes board action.
But anyway, I appreciate you presenting what you've done, Neil.
Yeah.
And Scott, I appreciate yours too. And I'm finished.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Owens.
Can I clarify something I said?
Yes, sir.
Because
one thing, Mr. Johnson asked to speak a while ago, and then I'll go with you.
I don't need to say anything else.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Mr. Webb.
It's actually because of Mr. Johnson, I want to clarify something I said about these schools' fund balances, that I am not asking for their fund balance. I know he didn't say I was saying that, but it got me thinking after what I had said. I didn't want Ginger to put that on the front page of the paper, that I was looking to raid the school board. It was just an illustration that some do have savings. And just because I like to argue with Mr. James, will tell me in the Second World War, you probably had an entire platoon with you, and you probably had 1,000 rounds of ammo, and a deputy sheriff carries probably about 30 or 40 rounds, and that in the military there are acceptable amount of casualties, both civilian and with your group, and in law enforcement, 0 is the only acceptable amount of casualties for the good guys, and that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I have 15 seconds? You always, when you get through, you wish you said one thing and you didn't say. It's not
Yes,
bad.
sir.
Okay, I promise 15 seconds.
Okay,
Talking about
you're on
ammo
the
and
clock.
guns, real quick, I promise you can set the timer. By statute, all the money for concealed carry goes directly to the sheriff to be used at his discretion. That's $45,000 we've collected. I know we consider that into the big pot revenue, so we haven't asked for that. 50% of all the money collected on civil process fees is a tune of $400,000 goes directly to the sheriff to be used at his discretion to buy equipment with. We haven't asked for that. We just letting that money be there, complying with the manager of this is revenue, let's bring it in, we provide your budgets, we're okay. And so I don't want to act like we're not asking for stuff. There's certain things we could do, but I'm trying to figure out how all this works. And I'm trying to figure out, hoping the manager and the commissions will fund what we need rather than saying, well, the statute says I can get that, and then we all got a dilemma, and I think. So there is money out there, but I've given the money to y'all, and y'all make the decision where it goes. And as far as the employees, and I probably need to clear that up, whatever budget you give me is what I'm going to deal with. But I'm arguing for the safety of Pitt County. This is what I've got to have. I'm not willing to give up the services that I love this county for, and the people that I've come back to work to help people in Pitt County. I do it out of love, not because of something I want to do.
Thank you very much for your presentation today.
Madam Chairman.
Just 1 minute. I'm going to ask the Finance Director to tell us one more time about all of the departments, and I think boards that make money, how we figure on what comes back into the budget, and it's there. And if that money is taken out, then there has to be a tax increase to meet the minimum. Am I on the right track?
When we prepare the general fund, we ask all the departments that generate revenue to estimate.
But when you say general fund, that's the budget.
The general fund
that
is
we
your,
pay out all
is where
year.
your taxes
Right.
are. Whether that's the animal shelter, the planning department, the register of deeds, tax collections, sales tax, investment earnings, all of those go into the same pot. If tax collections are up, the register of deeds fees are up, they all stay in the pot, because some revenue is not going to perform as expected. And if Michelle at the animal shelter got every dollar over and above her estimate, what is there to offset when sales tax, property tax, investment earnings, any other third-party revenue that we can't directly impact comes in underperforming? Because it's all in the same pot. And if you take out everything that you overcollect and allow somebody to have access to it to spend it, then nothing falls to fund balance at the end of the year, and your fund balance, in essence, could drop.
Okay, so this is not something new. This has been going on.
It's always, just like the
Forever, as long
revenues
as
Neil just
right.
referenced, have always been inside the general fund since before I got here in 1996.
And all I'm saying is, and that I don't want us to talk about it necessarily anymore until later on when we have another opportunity, when we're talking about the total budget, because we've got to move on to our next presentation. Yes, Mr. Hammond.
Yes, ma'am. I can recall a few years ago being in Raleigh on Glenwood Avenue at Your House Restaurant when Wake County Sheriff, one of my college mates, John Baker, came in and we talked, and he was sheriff of Wake County. And he explained to me that the sheriff works at the discretion of them citizens that elected him, like he was saying that he was elected by the people, and he made a commitment to them. And I want the manager to know that he works at the pleasure of the board and the people too, and all those departments that are under him. But he's the only man can tell these to go, and they're on desk duty until further notice. And that's what Glenn Becker did. He told the Board of Commissioners in Raleigh, in essence, that he told all his deputies to park their vehicle in the motor pool, and they was all on desk duty until they heard from him. And the next morning, the chairman called an emergency meeting with the Board of Commissioners, and those items that he needed, the board allotted it, and they got them. Ephraim made a good illustration about these other departments having these fundraisers to generate revenue to help run their departments and their main. That Mr. James, you made a statement that says that when a department goes out and works hard to have saving, something that they is asked to do but not demanded to do, they should be able to receive some of the benefits of their labor and their effort, and I agree with that. And Mr. Johnson, you are right. That in Raleigh now, you got a legislature that don't cut with a knife no more. They cut with an axe, especially education. And we had lunch that day, and next morning when I picked up the newspaper, I saw where those deputies had been pulled from patrol and off duty, and to those items that was requested. I believe there was vehicles and some more items. The county commissioners had agreed to furnish those items for the sheriff. Well, he was better off than we are because they have a state motor pool there, we have a lot of used highway patrol and other department of law enforcement vehicles there that they can use in an emergency, or they was able to use in an emergency. But public education and public safety are our priorities, and we have to find some way to keep those departments functional. And I know the citizens of Pitt County are depending on this board to do that, and so we need to think about it.
Yes, sir. And we thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you again, Sheriff, and your group for being here. We are running a little bit behind. Is Debbie Vargas here?
Debbie is in the airport. She sent a
okay.
message earlier this morning about 8:30 that she missed a connecting flight. I would tell you that the reason that budget is in here is not because you approve her line items,
Right.
but because the county is the authority to impose the hotel motel tax.
Right.
The budget under the hotel motel taxing authority, Debbie does bring her budget forward to us every year, but the Convention and Visitors Authority staff sit on the city's payroll and follow the city's guidelines. So this was more for information and to see if you all had questions. When she called from the airport, I told her we would speak on her behalf and let you know why she wasn't here.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I
thank
move
you.
we accept Melanie's presentation
Thank
for
you.
that.
Let's vote for the acceptance of that. And so we can move on to our Pitt County Alcohol Beverage Control Board. If you'll come forward. Yes, sir? Which means you are right on time.
Right on time. Yeah, that was good. Man, I got that.
Hey, how you doing?
Melanie.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
after his presentation and discussion, 2 minutes.
Yes, Bray, would you like one now?
If we're in position.
We're kind of on
If
time,
not,
so if you'll give
I
us
mean,
a
that's
minute.
fine, that's fine.
Madam
Okay,
Attorney, it needs
take him
one of
with a
those-
let's take a quick break.
You don't want me handling the legal stuff.
Okay, I got you. We, is that,